So hello again, here we go, Fest 3, Presentation 3. Always a pleasure to introduce Captain Zarir Irani, colleague, friend, immediate past president of the Institute, and Zarir, you've always got something interesting to say. I think when you came up with this presentation idea, coming back to a survey report, I'm reminded constantly of the importance of the report, and facts without fiction is exactly how I would sum it up. On Monday, a couple of days ago, we did a fest for small craft surveyors, and again, we touched on this very same thing. Report writing, it is a bit of an art form, really important to get it right. So Zarir, without further ado, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike, and welcome to all. Talk about facts without fiction. That's what a report should be, unless otherwise specifically told. But let's identify some of the most common aspects. I've picked mostly blue water work today. We will look at examples. We will look at some very, very brief factual statements. But more importantly, let me open this by saying, if you go away with proofreading your reports after you've written them, with this presentation in mind, I'm sure you will find something to tweak in your language in which you report. I all the time find some assumption or some phrase or some way that I have written in my proofreading of my own reports that I would like to put across in a different manner, maybe sounding more factual, or just completely remove it because I think it's not at all, factual in the report. So with 22,500 jobs behind us, I can't say that all of them are done by me, but they have been in my watch. I've overseen those for Constellation Marine, and I think we've come across enough self-correcting mechanism which we feel we can share with fellow surveyors. The Institute means a lot to me. Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. I have spent considerable amount of time with my mentors, seniors, board members, who all of them have a lot to offer this profession, and my own collection of thoughts. And what is coming out here is some of the examples that I've studied myself in the IIMS diploma that I did years ago. I've gone through those books. It's there in the bibliography in the end as an acknowledgement, but I would say some of them are aspects from the books with live cases that we've done. Names of the vessels have been kept away, but without much ado, let's get cracking on the agenda as to what you all are going to get out of this presentation. So I just mentioned examples of facts, examples of assumptions, and there is a couple of slides in the end which is kind of an advisory note. So if you all don't have the patience or time, at least the last 5 or 10 minutes of this presentation will be having loads and loads of takeaway as a summary of some of the advisory. There's a lot that we can say about these things, but I've picked and chosen a few things out of our live cases and our experience that I can share with you all with an open mind. Without much ado, the first case that I have, and I always love this example, and it's nothing to do with shipping. That's the beauty of this. It's to do with our daily lives. And our daily lives, we've all been parents or are parents and have brought up kids in our lives. And if you look at a factual statement, which may sound when you tell a story to somebody about some kid falling off, would be a simple factual statement, should paint a picture of what happens. A 5-year-old Adam had permanent injury, neurological injury when he fell off his neighbor's apple tree upon being left alone at home. There is absolute factual information in this, but this is more or less what you get as nominations as to a notification of what went wrong. But it would be factual, you know. Here are some of the assumptions or opinions on causations that one would immediately come up with. Now, if I was a husband, I would never ever blame my wife to have left Adam alone at home. But some of them who do not, especially grandparents amongst us, would say that Adam should not have been left alone as a toddler. They would deem it to be parents' negligence. And an opinion, well, even if he was left alone and he was sitting where he was sitting, and the parent would have come back and found him there, the negligence would have still been there, but there would have not been any injury to Adam. So there's got to be more than that towards the causation. So that opinion might be straight away wrong, whoever it is that is saying that, oh, the parents shouldn't have left the kid alone. There's another opinion that one may find, especially grumpy neighbors, and they would say, why would the neighbor leave the backyard open? It's because they left the backyard open. The kid went in and climbed up the apple tree. Well, he could have climbed up and climbed down without getting injured. So that can't be it either. So that's another opinion that might be. So all these, if these are found, and given the fact that Adam has had a permanent neurological injury, somebody else's property, there would be a case, there would be litigation, there would be somebody claiming some insurance from somebody, or maybe a criminal investigation. So all these are opinions, and I'll run through another one. The branch may be extended over a third neighbor's premises, and he might have actually fell on a concrete structure laid down. Well, it's circumstantial, but if there was soft mud, he would have not got into it. Then Adam didn't have the know-how or the access to the load-bearing capacity, to assess the load-bearing capacity of the branch. Self-inflicted, well, that plays a part if it is so proven. But again, the branch would have broken and he would have landed on his feet, not on his head. So that can't be. So really speaking, if you look at what the insurance companies need, and if this was an insurance claim and there was an insurance survey investigating this, you would have probably come with a factual cause consideration, and it would still be a consideration, it would not be a fact, and it would say simply that the head made contact with a hard surface enough to damage his skull, as a result causing him permanent injury. And the injury which could not be cured with known medical expertise available. And he would state examples of treatment probably Adam would have attempted. However, the first part let's focus on. This is what we're saying, and this is what most surveys should be sounding like. This is exactly what happened. His head made contact with the concrete, and the force was enough to rip his head open and cause him permanent injury, or cause an injury to start with. Whether permanent or not, it might be permanent injury now, but maybe 10 years down the line, there might be a cure for it. It might not be permanent anymore. So that word permanent there could also be questioned in terms of whether it is a fact or it might be different. But however, you could say that all the above, the 4 points up there, you could mention them in your report as statements of facts, that he was left alone, the neighbor's yard door was open, and the third neighbor's flooring was concrete or hard surface, etc., etc. Now, these have to form part of your report, because it's all considering built up towards the accident. So here's a little bit of a teaser to just start getting into the groove of what we're talking about. Now imagine this is an average everyday fall of a child. It need not have been permanent, it need not have been left alone, but kids keep falling around and keep getting injured. But look at the amount of complexities and assumptions that could have been thought of. And sometimes these find their way in reports of severes if it is a maritime related matter. Now there are ships going out to sea. People put pressure on the ship's crew to kind of hold back information, logbooks, entries, reasons, this, that. So, it's never ever as straightforward and easy as possible. But if you go with the perspective of saying that every factual contribution to the matter will be reported, you will have a better understanding of it. Now let's get to the meat of this presentation. We'll talk about a case today, and the fact of this unfortunate incident was when we did attend this nomination, and the fact was that amongst 105 local repair workers and crew members on board an Aframax named PD, 3 people had been reported dead, 1 injured, and 2 missing. This is what it was as a fact, and we got nominated with this piece of information. In fact, the 105 figure was not as clear and specific as we can imagine. They said over 100 were there, but that was later on found out to be that. That is what the vessel ended up looking like, an Aframax tanker. You usually don't see the insides of cargo tanks as clearly opened up like this as a bulk carrier would be. These are the first 2 tanks which you see, but if you look immediately under deck of the open structure, there are 2 more tanks which are forward of this opened up tank, which actually blew into these aft tanks, and as a result, the tank top, which looked like this throughout, was ripped up and blown up into the sky. I've got a video of it which is freely available on YouTube, and I'll reduce the sound of it, but I'll keep it playing while we're talking about the matter. Let me reduce the volume of that so it doesn't disturb us, but you can keep watching that in the background. So let's talk about some of the opinions that came out of this immediately. As the media, and they're still available, at least I know 2 out of these are still available. If you Google up the incident, but the ship had been emptied, it said, of oil, that's a fact, which may have created more space for flammable gas to expand. May have. Again, when you write the word may is full of assumption. So that's a clear indication of an assumption. Let's go to the next point. We're not here to carry on deliberating about it, but that's the key word there. Vessel was hit by 3 blasts erupting at the aft of the ship, causing damage in the engine room. Well, the engine room was never damaged, number 1. The pump room was, but the vessel was hit by 3 blasts. Come on. Clearly, blasts don't hit, blasts happen. So there is, the moment you read it, you know that this is written by somebody who does not understand incidents. And living quarters, another one. Living quarters, how many people talk about accommodation structure on a vessel or a superstructure as living quarters? Well, they may describe it, but again, a non-nautical term. The spark of the fire was caused by welding work, but the cause of several explosions remains unclear. Well, by reading this statement by press, and I've written this with the perspective of how important media mingle is in an incident and a big incident. So it's very important that if there is something like this, that if you are representing an owner or a charterer or an asset owner, it is important that you give out first a statement of fact for the media and not leave it to them to deliberate on it. It is believed that a potential cause of the explosion, there you see the blast there, a potential cause of explosion was a residual flame. It is believed. Again, and these statements are full of assumptions and there's no factual aspect of it. And let's come to the last one. The vessel, certified as having been gas-free, was in ballast at the time of the casualty. Now, out of these four statements, the only one which is closest to fact is point number D. And it is so because we were on board when we were investigating the very next morning after this happened at 5:30 in the evening. The vessel was indeed certified, but unfortunately the vessel was certified for the next 4 days after the blast had happened. So the vessel had enough problems to take care of, and the owners enough, and the PNI club had enough on hands. The last thing you needed is people, and this was a national flag vessel, not a flag of convenience. So there was this vessel all over the national TV when they were talking about one of their national flag vessels was blown up like this. So there were all sorts of media speculation. So statement of fact going from the owners about the incident, very brief but truthful, has to be absolutely thought of immediately as the first thing. I think most people have, and that's why I mentioned the media mingle. They're the best ones to mess up the thing. A potential claim and defense. And this video is still there. Can you imagine? They've not been able to take them off still. Anyway, getting on. Our hottest topic this year, and this time last year, before anybody knew about the sea of corona, there was a lot of talk about how very low sulfur fuel oil would create a large number of claims. And let's talk about one such incident and see how we can have a number of assumptions. And this is from a perspective of charterers. Yeah. So let's see how we can have a bit of fun with this particular case. Yeah. Let's talk about the facts. Dispute between the vessel owner and charterer about VLSFO, that is very low sulfur fuel oil, supply and quantity is on an exponential rise due to engine room malfunction, breakdowns, stoppages, diversions for overhauls. Now, when you get a nomination sometimes from your favorite charterers or large chartering houses to go out there and protect their interest. Now, as an independent surveyor, first of all, you have to make up your mind whether you want to put yourself out there as owners or charterers, pet representatives. Very dangerous, because insurance clubs will immediately look at you as somebody who works with charterers, sides them, protects them, etc., etc. Much like criminal lawyers who always defend the guilty party or the criminal party. So they get a kind of a reputation saying that let's go to so-and-so lawyer because he is very good at defending criminal cases or guilty parties. So you get a bit of that kind of a reputation. So as an independent, it's very important to think if you want to take up the nomination for an asset owner or a charterer when they say, go out there and protect my interests. I may have supplied the sulfur. It may be spurious, it may be, but you've got to give me a report or kind of go there to tell me what is to be done to protect my interests. We do not do that as Constellation, but there might be some people listening to us today who might be thinking about this aspect of it. However, let's get on with some of the assumptions that may come up in a case of a dispute like this. So you would easily see the note of protest which flies from A to B. It might not be factual what is protested for. It needs to be investigated with evidence. Only then it becomes fact, but it might be the starting point of what, who is saying what. The why bit we can look at later. We're 20 minutes into it, we're doing well. So let's see owners allege poor fuel quality supplied. Of course, if you have engine room issues, if you got breakdown, malfunctions, plungers, this particular case, we had plungers, engine, main engine and auxiliary engine, which had simultaneously got buggered up, and there was a lot of sludging, the injectors were all jammed up, etc., etc. So, manifold samples were tested at a preferred lab, that's what they said. Because only after you test the supply samples would you start using that fuel. And the owners also alleged, saying that potentially pre-arranged samples were given to the vessel. Now, when pre-arranged samples are given to the vessel, we do a lot of fueling, witnessing and claims in Fujairah. And what has been an early trend when LSF first started is that they have premeditated sample bottles. There's a bottle that's stuck and taking a drip, but at some stage, it gets swapped very conveniently, and the premeditated sample is actually there if you're not keeping your eyeballs on the samples that are being taken at the ship's manifold, sometimes the barge manifold, mostly at the ship's manifold. So that's clean oil, and it's nice, and it's not mixed with any spikes, anything. But that's what the owners alleged. It happens. We are aware of it. When we were we were questioned about what are they talking about and why is this? We said yes, it is a trend, at least in our part of the world. I do not know other fueling hubs, but we did say yes. Then charterers alleged co-mingling of fuel from previous supplies, compatibility aspect. Now, if you get the samples tested and they're okay, the chief engineer starts using them. But when he starts using them, engine rooms have service tanks, settling tanks. And when service tanks and settling tanks have got the previous fuel and the new supply, which is alleged to be questionable, gets mixed up, the quantity in the service and settling tank is enough to create a sludge if the two fuels are not compatible. And that's something to look for and to collect evidence for. And only if that commingled sample, which probably already is burnt and gone, is not recorded as to how the flushing of the engine and the old fuel was before the new one was used, it is something that we can put in the report in such claims as a fact. Charterers allege engine manufacturer's recommendation of fuel management was not followed by the ship's engineers. Now, when a charterer makes such a claim, he has to have a clear hand on all the logbooks, all the procedures of changeover, ask questions to the engineers. It will be a very difficult one if a charterer puts and alleges something like this that was not found, because if you are alleging something, the onus of proof of something as ambiguous as point number 3 would be on your shoulders. Tank cleanliness and sludge management inadequate is another one. Again, another one difficult to prove because, you know, nobody enters into fuel tanks and doesn't understand fully unless you have evidence that before you took the new fuel, the tank, nominated tank in which the supply was taken was absolutely clean and clear. So there's so many things that can be absolutely potentially ambiguous in a claim like this. Now, when a fuel claim like this comes and somebody, an asset owner, ship owner says that my engines have got buggered up because of bad fuel, our experience, we've done at least about 15 claims this year on this particular aspect itself. And I can tell you, our chief engineer, Ramesh, who's the ex-Bureau Veritas surveyor, has always come about and had a difficult one, whether it's for underwriters, P&I clubs, charterers, you know, charterers, P&I, whatever it is, FDND, it is extremely difficult as an owner, or position of an owner is extremely jeopardized to be able to put a finger on bad fuel quality unless he has all the aspects taken care of. So, moving on, let's talk about another. We'll go a little fast on this now. Grounding claims are fantastic. Again, another aspect of the claims world which is not visible to your eyes. So it has a potential of a lot of assumptions, and there have to be a lot of discrete findings Ooh, I don't know what that was. Sorry. A lot of discrete findings have to be in place before you can get your report together. So several discrete findings were built together to support an opinion which may become a fact, which that becomes evident from the facts. And we will talk about some of the examples of this, and how a surveyor's role is important in this. Oh my God, sorry about that. How a surveyor's role is important in an investigation, which is an alleged grounding. That's one of the jobs that we did. After she's pulled out of the water and after a diving report, it is very clear how much of a damage, but when you are investigating on the cause of consideration, it is a difficult one to put together. So let's talk about some examples which point towards a particular conclusion when a grounding incident is there. There are always soundings that you can take around the vessel, provided if she's still sitting there where the master alleges that she's grounded. And we can put together something like the port side showed that there was evidence of clear water. Ship's log shows previous grounding on the port side several months before. Therefore, it's unlikely that the damage occurred as a result of this grounding. Cannot be ruled out. What cannot be ruled out is it does not matter if the ship had grounded before on the port side and there was evidence that there was a reported grounding, maybe on the same port, maybe another port, but the port side. And however, it can be possible that she's again grounded on the same side. It has aggravated the damage, etc. So it's a very complicated one if an incident happens, but you've got to have a lot of evidence-based eyewitness-based crew statements, a lot of things for grounding, but the fact remains that usually debatable grounding claims, unless she's gone and sat there like this vessel has on a hard beach or a hard coral this thing, and she's there, it's clear that she's grounded. There's absolute factual evidence. Moving on. There are some reasons that I've put together why an opinion is not to be given. Caution on providing these when asked for. Opinion have to be based on facts available only. Let's say if you had a crane operator that had failed a breath analyzer test immediately after a crane incident or a damage incident, you could easily put down that it is your opinion that because he was intoxicated, he is not able to operate the crane in a safe manner. Well, it does not mean that it was the only reason. It could also mean at that time that the crane limit switch was bypassed, etc., the wire parted because of it being weak, old, etc. But an opinion based on facts available only may be something that I just gave you a crane example, but point being that it could be based on a lot of facts, but opinions have to be given for causation because you've got to put some cause considerations when asked for in your report, especially an investigative report for an incident. Opinions may differ when more facts are disclosed or made available. This single statement written at the end of your cause consideration is a very important escape that you may have if you are questioned later on, because not everything is available to you or shown to you or kind of disclosed to you when you are going on board. It's much like looking at this phone and saying there's something black at the other end of this phone, and I'm looking at the screen, you're looking at this end, but I've only been shown the screen. So I'm looking at that on the phone, you're looking at that on the phone. So when you are looking at it and reporting, you're saying something blue, something black at the back stuck, and that's it. But when I'm looking at it, I'm reporting that, a nice shiny black screen. So what is shown to you, subsequently, if it is turned, you might be able to see more information. So please add this one line, and we do it as a practice. It's very, very important. However, this is my second last slide, and I must start telling you how important it is when you see the first few pictures or hear of the first nomination, that it is a major calamity. The new diamond, which blew up in the Indian Ocean near the coast of Sri Lanka, is now in Fujairah and Kalba rather. It's being discharged, and when you hear of these big incidents and you have a nomination or a first picture of it looks like this when it comes to you from anywhere, you know for a fact that there is definitely some aspect of your work might be going in front of lawyers, and it may be litigious. So when a nomination like that comes, the first and foremost thing one must be very clear and do is limit the report to facts only. That is the first and the most important. I mean, you might want to take up nomination of one party or the other, but it never falls in the right. You will never fall. When you jump off, you will never fall on your feet. You will always wobble when you question those reports. So stick to facts when it's litigious is the point. If one feels information is of value but is outside the scope of work, there are always telephones, seek client's advice, verbal reports, best, confidential notes, not mentioning report number, just send it to the client separately. It may not add up to the report, but the clubs love confidential notes. Information should not become public knowledge. Now, these in terms of the cyber vulnerability aspect of the world that it is coming through. Unfortunately, we've done so many pen tests, and it is something that is so easy these days. But if you are responsible for collecting evidence and information, and if that leaks through your sources, you'll be hung by your legs, I might say politely, if it is found out. On the onset, if you are being nominated by clubs, underwriters, etc., and there are lawyers kept in copy, it always makes sense to address all your reports and your advisories to the legal advisors or to the lawyers who are in copy. This has to be sought out right up front by the correspondence of y'all with the club as or underwriters, that can we send it to your lawyers first, because they have the right of disclosure and they might be able to hold back your report and is before it gets out in the in a court of law being debated, because independent reports are admissible in courts of law, and that is why it's important to have them stuck to facts only. Let's get on with the last slide, and I would like to summarize it. I don't know what the last line is going there, formatting, but I'll put up all of them together. Let's start with saying, do not take up litigious enough matters if you do not have reasonable experience. In that case, a container vessel toppling up, if you've not got experience on such vessels, such jobs, anything and everything you write in that report and sign it off will be shredded into pieces by the opposition. Where the first thing they will question is the credibility of the person attending. So if you are not experienced enough, do not attend litigious jobs. You have to be extremely competent, because any debate on whether what you've written is right, wrong, factual or not will be questioned and will be taken apart by the other side if it's going against them, because you would not have experience to do so. Do a job like that. So do not take it up. Seek senior advice. Get the right person in your team to do courses is the first point. Do not give out an opinion easily, nor without being asked for. Sticking to facts is the safest business. I've survived 17 years in UAE, of which 14 have been as Constellation Marine, and I can tell you that it is always a safe way to do business if you write a factual report. There'll be lesser fingers pointed. Leaving the conclusion bit out for lawyers to draft is always a good idea. You report the facts and leave the conclusion bit. Let them ask for it. If you have to conclude it mark it or subtitle it very clearly as saying it's a technical conclusion or it's a technical cause of consideration and not a legal one, because there's a big difference in how a technical person concludes a certain matter on causation, on why it happened, what happened, than a legal person would be. So please be very, very careful with that. I would just safely say that we've left the conclusion out. This is what we saw, this is what we found, this is the logbook, this is the photographs, this is the extent of damage, and leave it to that. Why and what happened, let them ask for it. We will answer them. There's nothing wrong in one extra email being exchanged on a big matter, especially if it's fictitious. Beware of the words, protect our members' interest as independent surveyors in your instruction note. Seek clarity at once, because I don't want to name anybody or say anything, but there is enough number of correspondents, enough number of junior claims handlers who may think that protecting the owner's interest or the charter's interest is our job. It's not our job to protect anybody's interest. Go back to them and ask them to please clarify what they mean, because it is, if you sit with that instruction in your mailbox and you write a report thereafter and it's discovered that somebody nominated you to protect somebody's interest as an underwriter, it might be jeopardizing your independence and your integrity for what you have gone there for. Always and forever look for exclusions in your report. I'm in the process of writing a book for the IIMS, and always and forever look for exclusions in your report. Mention areas not seen or documents not given to you. Let's say, for example, if there was, let's take the example of very low sulfur fuel oil, which is there. If the ship owner, and you've gone there as a charter's nomination or charter's P&I club nominations, if you are not shown the ship's logbook or how the transfer of fuel took place and things like that, but it is an important spoke of the wheel of your process of finding, coming down to the bottom of the whole matter, and somebody's held back information. They're not showing you logbook entries, how they use, how they changed over procedure of fuel oils. You might want to put that down clearly in your report, saying that I would want to look at what the internal procedures are, what the company's systems are for changeover of one type of fuel over to another type, and they've not shown us, no logbooks have been shown, but it forms a very important aspect of your fact collecting mission. So with that, with a lot of exclusions written in your report, or at least a few of areas not seen, I would say that if this particular slide is pondered upon or chewed upon well, with or without what I've said is live examples earlier, you would have probably looked at it, this subject in a more comprehensive manner. I'm sticking to 40 minutes. That is my last slide. And I'd like to say that some of my examples are coming from the books that I've studied from. These are the 3 books that I've picked some examples and some fundamentals of, and use those to make my presentation with live cases that we've attended. And my heartfelt gratitude, and those who are still wondering whether to take up the IIMS diploma or not, I would wholeheartedly endorse and recommend you all to do it. They become such gold mines in your library that you cannot imagine. And presentations like these take me back into my books and notes, and I always come back with nuggets. And I'm thankful to Mike and the IIMS headquarters team to give me the opportunity to do so. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very, very much for listening. I'm open to questions or suggestions or anything else that you'll have to say. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Zarir. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the plug on the IIMS diploma. We've had a record number of students actually join us this year. I don't know if that's COVID related, but we've got currently over 200 people now studying the diploma. A couple of things I would pick up on and just endorse that you said, really. One is this whole thing about working outside your area of competence. That's not directly related to the report, But of course, when you come to put your report together, it becomes obvious to the reader of the report that, you know, you don't quite know exactly what you're dealing with. And that links, I suppose, into the other issue or the other matter I wanted to stress, which is you are potentially writing every report for a judge and jury 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And again, I would just agree entirely with Zarir. If you've got some content in your report that is not factual, is an opinion and can't be substantiated by facts, then a judge and jury, and particularly a boisterous barrister on the other side, is going to have a bit of a field day. And we see that. We see that. And Zarir, I'm sure you've seen it too. And you know, I think those for me are the two key takeaways. So stick to the facts, and certainly in the small craft arena, less so in the commercial ship arena, but I would say almost all the complaints I get, and I get maybe 20 to 25 complaints here, they're all about small craft surveyors. Rarely do I get one about a commercial ship surveyor, but it just goes to highlight the point. I would say probably in 90% of the cases, it's not a lack of technical competency or capability that's let the surveyor down, it's the report. And it might just be one aspect, and we saw something crazy really, but we saw somebody who put a comma in the wrong place in a sentence, and it completely changed the meaning of the sentence. And when it came to court, it cost him £8,000 simply because he put a comma in the wrong place. And it's hard, isn't it? You know, because we're not all linguists, we're not all English, you know, grammar students. I don't know if you'd agree with all of that, Zarir, but that would be my take on it.
I completely agree with you, Mike. One aspect of it is English, which is absolutely so important to write well in good English, in clear English. But I think days are gone now that people pick on small grammar, etc., at least not in our part of the world, because and you know, reports come from all over the place, and some are good, some are not so good in their narrative. It is an important aspect, but you know, picking and nitpicking on that aspect, I think fewer and fewer are doing, but it is still important because it gives that last finishing brush to the report. However, to pan out on a factual report versus a report that has a lot of assumptions or tendency of an assumption put in, the thumb rule that we use in our organization is the KISS fundamental. Keep it short and simple. So keeping it short and simple, the KISS fundamental, always helps. So if you ask me, a factual report versus a report full of assumptions, the factual report will always be to the point, will be a short one, will be crisp. There'll be no ifs, buts, and maybes and things like that. And the first thing when you look at a 20-page, 25-page narrative report is saying, oh, this is just about some oil spilled in the water. Why is it 20 pages? And when it goes into that versus a 5-7 page factual report on quantities and what got stained and how much, and you would know immediately that there is something that you can pick on. So in other words, the more you write, the more tendency of you making assumptions. That's the point I'm making.
I agree entirely, Zarir. And in actual fact, I saw a small craft surveyor's report the other day that was over 100 pages. I can't imagine who on earth is going to read 100 pages. They won't. They'll go to presumably the executive summary and just read that bit. You know, people are busy people. So I think generally reports are too long. I've just had a comment coming from Greg, which I want to relay into you. So Greg says he finds it valuable to have his report proofread by someone other than himself in order to make sure it is understandable, grammatically correct, and reads well. And again, I mean, proofreading is a whole different skill set So again, if it's not something that you're good at, I agree, Greg, and I'm sure Zarir will too, get someone else who can just put a fresh set of eyes over it. The one piece of free software I would happily promote to anybody is Grammarly. So I always have Grammarly open on my machine. When I type something incorrect, Grammarly tells me I've done something wrong. So it's not just spelling. It looks at the grammar. If it doesn't like the look of it, then it tells me and gets me just to think about, have I said the right thing? So yeah, really good advice. Anything to say on proofreading, Zarir?
Yeah, indeed. We have a system of guardian angel in our company, so there's never a lone soldier in the field. He's always, from the time the nomination starts, they have the free will to choose their guardian out of the team of 20 that we have, and obviously they go to the most compatible friend that they have. But the guardian angel has a responsibility, saying, no, I don't know much about this. I'm a cargo surveyor, and I'm not a fuel oil surveyor, or I'm not having sailing experience, so I can't guide you on a lashing calculation on a yacht that is being transported on the back of a ship. So guardian angels are great because they have the sense in our company of a panned out version, and they always look at the job with the perspective of a client. So they wear a client's hat, they read the report saying, what would this report sound like to a P&I club claims handler or lawyer? So they always give you a perspective on it. Of course, proofreading comes with that. Proofreading is absolutely key. You know, when we were in 2007, we didn't have the luxury of anyone proofreading. My dear wife used to, and she used to read it from a lame person's perspective, and she used to be absolutely critical about it, saying, I don't understand what you've written. And that was my first cue, because if she doesn't understand it, neither would a claims handler sitting across the seas would, or a charterer or a ship owner. So having it proofread by a non-technical person, whether they understand the flow of the story or ask you questions that how it is and why have you written that, is a very, very important solution to the problem. If you have finished a report in the night, you can get your head down, get up in the morning before you click send, and tell yourself you're reading this as the client. I mean, self-reading as well, but with the mindset of a bit of a break and a bit of a changed perspective to read it yourself also helps. That's the only thing I'd say about proofreading. Was absolutely critical about proofreading a report. You can tell when a report is not proofread, or mail that are not proofread. When you read your own mail after some time and you missed out a few things, you know it is a shoddy job. It just completely discredits the fact what you've written in the report.
It's not just reports as well, actually, Zarir, because I looked at a surveyor's website, I won't mention his name, the other day. I went to his website, his homepage contained 4 spelling mistakes. And I immediately thought, if I was a client looking for a surveyor, and I went to the first page of his website and it was full of problems and issues, how could I potentially engage the guy? Because if that's the quality of his work and his proofing, then what quality the report? Silly, isn't it? Really crazy. Simple little things.
Yeah.
Okay, Zarir, fabulous. Thank you very much indeed. Great.